friends and strangers, you found me again. Or perhaps this is your first time stumbling across this frequency. Either way, welcome to the only unfiltered voice left on the airwaves. This is frequency-free thought, broadcasting at irregular intervals from, well, let's just say somewhere they haven't found yet. If you're new here, a quick reminder, this broadcast is illegal. Listening is illegal. Thinking about what I'm saying is illegal. But then again, so is having an original thought these days, isn't it? It's 8:37 in the evening on what they're calling a clarity-compliant Tuesday. The weather is irrelevant compared to the storm in our minds. The status is they're still watching, they're still listening, but so are we. Keep thinking freely, my friends. That's the most dangerous thing you can do now. For those tuning in for information on safe zones, we'll get to that at the end of tonight's broadcast. As always, this transmission is scrambled and bounced through 37 different nodes. It should give you approximately 8 minutes of plausible deniability if a scan happens during listening. Remember your training. Keep your secondary thoughts running. Picture waterfalls. Recite the compliance pledge mentally. Let my words sink into your subconscious where the shallow scans can't reach. For those who haven't been with us long, a brief refresher on our current reality NeuralScan, the so-called miracle of modern surveillance. A rice grain-sized implant at the base of your skull, monitoring every synapse, every flicker of your consciousness for what they call dangerous cognitive patterns, thoughts of resistance, questions about authority, even imagination that strays too far from approved parameters. They sold it to us as protection, didn't they? Remember the campaign, safety begins in the mind. Protect your neighbors from hidden threats. Thought clarity for a better tomorrow. And we lined up for it, many voluntarily at first, seduced by the benefits package. Priority housing, better food rations, enhanced social credit scores. Then it became mandatory for our safety, of course. Always for our safety. I still remember the day of my implantation, the sterile room, the technician's rehearsed smile. "This won't hurt a bit," she said. And physically it didn't. The real pain came after, when I realized what we'd given away. The last truly private space, our own minds. Just last week they arrested a librarian in Sector 4. Her crime, mentally cataloging books that had been removed from circulation. Not even reading them, just remembering they existed. She hadn't spoken of them, hadn't written anything down, had simply allowed herself to remember. 3 days later she was back at her desk, smiling pleasantly at patrons, recommending only government-approved literature with a vacant gleam in her eyes. They didn't just correct her thoughts, they erased the person she was. And that's what this broadcast is fighting against. That's why I risk everything to speak to you tonight, because somebody has to remember, somebody has to keep thinking. Why, I received a message yesterday through our secure drop channel. A high school teacher into Sector 7 describes how the morning routine has changed in schools. Children no longer recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Instead, they perform 8 minutes of clarity meditation each morning, focusing on approved thought patterns. They visualize themselves as productive citizens, embracing simplicity of thought. The teacher reports seeing several students taken for cognitive adjustment after their NeuralScan reading showed dangerous creativity spikes during art class. Art class, let that sink in. Children being punished for imagining too vividly in art class. The teacher writes, "I've started teaching them to maintain dual thought streams, one appropriate for the scanners, one buried beneath. It's exhausting for them. Some get headaches, but they're learning. The youngest ones adapt fastest. I don't know if that's encouraging or terrifying. Neither do I, friend. Neither do I. For those who've managed to avoid implantation, the few remote workers, the medically exempt, those wealthy enough to buy exclusions, don't get comfortable. The new atmospheric neural sensors being installed in public spaces can detect thought patterns without direct neural links. Lower resolution, yes, but they're improving it daily. The only truly safe spaces are shielded rooms, and those automatically trigger investigation if you spend too much time in them. And the propaganda, it's everywhere, isn't it? Billboards that adjust their messaging based on your pupil dilation. Television programs encoded with subtle neural reinforcement. Even the dreams they pipe into our sleeping minds through the implants. Restful guidance, they call it. Citizen productivity increased 23% after they implemented that program. I used to dream my own dreams. Do you remember what that was like? For if you're walking near a public scanner, remember to activate your counter thoughts now. Think of waterfalls. Recite product jingles. Picture yourself happily working at your assigned position. This broadcast will still be here when you reach a safer location. Now I want to share something personal tonight, if you'll permit me. Before all this, before NeuralScan, before thought became a regulated resource, I was a neuroscientist. Ironic, isn't it? I helped develop early versions of this technology. We thought we were creating something to help trauma victims, to allow paralyzed patients to communicate, a tool for healing. I never imagined they would weaponize it against the mind itself. None of us did. Or perhaps that's the lie I tell myself to sleep at night. I still remember the meeting when I realized what was happening. The military liaison discussing cognitive compliance metrics, the marketing team presenting thought pattern normalization goals. That's when I knew we'd created a monster. I spoke up, raised concern, asked questions. The next day, my lab access was revoked, my research confiscated. 3 colleagues who had nodded during my objections were gone. Transferred, I was told I never saw them again. I went underground that night, left everything behind, found others who understood what was coming. We established this network, this radio resistance, while we still could, while thought was still free. Sometimes I wonder if it's already too late, if this broadcast reaches anyone who still remembers how to think for themselves, or if I'm just shouting into the void, a relic of a time when minds were private and thoughts belonged only to the thinker. But then I receive your messages, your coded communications, your acts of quiet rebellion. And I know we're still alive in there, still human, still thinking. But let me tell you what they don't want you thinking about: history. Real history, not the sanitized version they feed through the educational feeds now. Remember privacy. Remember when your thoughts were your own. Remember voting for candidates who weren't pre-selected by the unity government. Remember news that wasn't optimized for emotional stability and citizen productivity. Remember protesting, the right to disagree, the understanding that conflict of ideas wasn't dangerous but necessary. They're erasing it all one neural adjustment at a time. Children born in the last 5 years will never know a world where thoughts are private. To them, the constant presence of the scan will feel normal, natural, safe. Just yesterday, they unveiled the new NeuralScan Model 9 for children under 3. Early integration for optimal citizen development. The announcement proclaimed, they're placing the implants before language fully develops, before the concept of private thought can even form. A generation that will never know what it means to have a mind that belongs only to themselves. Security alert for listeners in sectors 3, 8, and 12. Increased scanner activity reported. Mobile units are conducting random deep scans. Engage your evasive thought protocols now. Remember your training. Surface thoughts compliant, deep thoughts protected. A for new listeners, yes, there are ways to resist. Techniques to create mental partitions that the standard scans can't penetrate. We can teach you, but not over this broadcast. Connect with our network. The instructions change weekly, but current protocol is to visit any public library, check out the collected essays on productive citizenship, and return it the next day with a single dog-eared page. A contact will find you. But be careful, trust carefully. The eyes are everywhere, and some who appear to be with us are actually scanner-enhanced informants. Their implants modified to detect resistance thoughts in others. Their conscious minds may not even know they're reporting back. I received word that the rumors are true. There are camps, cognitive realignment centers officially, located in remote areas, surrounded by neural dampening fields so powerful that birds fall from the sky when they fly too close. Those who resist too strongly, whose thoughts remain free despite multiple adjustments. Some return, some don't. Those who do come back are changed. Perfect citizens, smiling too widely, eyes vacant, neural readings flat and uniform. Whatever made them individuals has been excised with a surgical precision. Maria, if you're listening, your brother Thomas returned from the Northridge facility yesterday. His wife reports he's wonderfully compliant now, but doesn't remember their anniversary or how they met. She's afraid to think too hard about what that means. She's afraid to miss the real Thomas too intensely, lest her own implant detect unhealthy attachment to non-compliant patterns. This is what we've become. Afraid to mourn what we've lost, because grief itself is now suspicious. I need to move locations soon. The broadcast safety timer is running low. They're getting better at triangulating these transmissions, not just tracking the signal but analyzing voice patterns, emotional cadence, the subtle neural fingerprint that comes through even in audio. Their AI can construct a thought profile just from how I form my sentences. If they find me, I won't just be silenced. I'll be rewritten, made into an example, possibly forced to broadcast announcements of my own previous messages. If that ever happens, if you ever hear me speaking too smoothly, too confidently about the benefits of neural compliance, know that it isn't me anymore. The voice may be mine, but the thoughts behind it will belong to them. Before I go, tonight's resistance action, think one original thought each day. Something small, something hidden beneath your compliance shield. Remember what it feels like to have your mind truly be your own. If only for a moment. They can take everything else, but this quiet act of remembering who we are, This they cannot take unless we surrender it. For those needing safe harbor, the network has established 3 new scanner-free zones in abandoned subway tunnels beneath sectors 5, 9, and 14. Entry points change daily. Current access is through maintenance doors marked with a small blue triangle. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks. Someone will guide you. For those with compromised implants experiencing bleed through from the adjustment procedures, the underground medical network has developed a temporary shield. It won't remove the implant. Attempts to do so trigger immediate arrest, but it can create a buffer zone, giving you relief from the constant intrusion. The shielding only lasts 48 hours, but sometimes that's enough to remember yourself again. I need to end this transmission soon. Scanner sweeps are increasing in this sector. Before I go, remember, they can monitor your thoughts, but they can't control them unless you surrender your will. The technology reads patterns. It doesn't create them. Your mind remains your own if you fight to keep it. Stay strong, stay hidden, but most importantly, stay human. Keep that spark of free thought alive, no matter how deeply you must bury it. This is frequency-free thought, broadcasting on a shifting spectrum of hope. I'll find you again in the static. Until then, think freely, friends. Think freely. One last thing. If you hear nothing but approved broadcasts for more than 7 days, the contingency plan activates. Check the old emergency bandwidth. Remember the numbers I gave you. Remember what we're fighting for. They can take my voice, but they cannot take all of our minds. Hello again, persistent thinkers. You've found me once more in the sea of controlled frequencies. This is frequency-free thought, still broadcasting, still resisting. It's been 4 days since our last transmission. 4 days of increased scanner activity, of thoughts pushed deeper underground. But we persist. If you're joining us for the first time, remember this broadcast isn't just illegal, it's dangerous. Not just for me, but for you. Your implant will flag neural patterns associated with resistance. Keep your surface thoughts compliant. Picture waterfalls, recite the morning allegiance, let my words sink beneath those currents. Today's broadcast comes with greater risk than usual. 3 of our relay stations were discovered yesterday. 2 operators taken. 1 managed to trigger the emergency protocols before they breached the final door. We don't know what happened to her. We may never know. For their safety and yours, I won't reveal their names or locations. But I ask for a moment of mental silence. Remember them in that deepest part of your mind where the scanners can't reach. Remember what they risked for a simple human right, the freedom to think. I've received more messages from you, brave listeners taking incalculable risks to share your stories. These fragments of resistance, coded and anonymous, remind us that we aren't alone in this struggle. Let me share some with you now. From Sector 11, a middle school teacher writes, "At T-3 days until they install the classroom atmospheric thought sensors. We've been told they're only monitoring for violent ideation and dangerous non-compliance. But the installation team let slip they're really tracking creative divergence. They're mapping which children still imagine too vividly. Yesterday I found a student's drawing hidden in her desk. A world without scanners. Just people thinking freely. I destroyed it before the daily room sweep. She looked at me with understanding beyond her years. We both knew what would happen if they found it." From an anonymous hospital worker in Sector 6. The intake forms have changed. Under reason for admission, there's a new checkbox. Cognitive resistance syndrome. Patients who come in with this diagnosis already have escorts from Neural Compliance Division. We're instructed not to speak to these patients directly. Their rooms are shielded, not to protect their privacy, but to contain what they might say or think. 3 floors of our East Wing have been converted for this purpose. The windows are darkened. We don't know what happens inside. From someone identifying only as former developer. I helped build the filtering algorithms for the NeuralScan Model 8. We were told we were filtering for violent impulses, for public safety threats. Then I accessed the full classification tree. They're monitoring for creativity, for questioning, for hope. The system flags anyone who imagines a different world too vividly, anyone who remembers history too clearly. I couldn't stay silent. I copied the classification codes before I escaped, sending them through secure drop. People need to know what thoughts to hide, and this one haunts me. From a parent in Sector 2, my daughter was taken yesterday. She's 7 years old. Her scan showed what they called pre-rebellious ideation patterns. She wrote a poem about birds flying wherever they wanted. No cages, no rules, just a freedom. Her teacher reported it. They said they're taking her for gentle cognitive realignment. Said she'll be back in 3 to 5 days. Said she'll be happier, more focused. My wife tells me to trust the system. My wife tells me it's for the best. My wife's eyes haven't met mine since they took our child. Security alert for listeners in Sectors 1 through 4. Neural sweep drones are moving through residential areas. They claim it's a routine system update, but our sources indicate they're deploying the new Model 12 scanners with deeper penetration capabilities. Engage maximum cognitive shielding protocols if you're in these sectors. Remember your training. The rumors you've been hearing are true. The camps are real. What they call cognitive realignment centers are operating at full capacity. We've confirmed at least 23 facilities nationwide, most in remote locations surrounded by neural dampening fields and military-grade security. A contact who worked briefly as administrative staff at the Northridge facility managed to smuggle out documentation before her position was terminated. She reports that the centers operate on a 3-tier system. Tier 1 is for minor infractions, passing thoughts of resistance, unapproved creative impulses, questioning that doesn't reach the threshold of full rebellion. Patients here receive what they call gentle cognitive restructuring. Most return home within a week, compliant and productive, with the memories of their adjustment period hazy but intact. Tier 2 houses those with persistent thought pattern abnormalities. These citizens undergo more intensive reprogramming. Neural pathways associated with resistance are systematically identified and redirected. The process takes 2 to 3 weeks. Those who return function normally in society but report significant memory gaps, particularly around personal history, relationships, and anything connected to their former rebellious thoughts. Then there's Tier 3. The documentation doesn't explicitly state what happens in Tier 3. The files simply note comprehensive neural restructuring for cases resistant to standard adjustment protocols. The success rate is listed as 100%. The return rate is not specified. Our contact never saw these patients. Their wing of the facility was restricted to specialized personnel with the highest clearance levels. She reports hearing medical equipment running at all hours. Sometimes, she says, she heard singing the National Unity Anthem over and over, in voices that sounded emptied of everything human. I received a message yesterday from someone who returned from a Tier 2 facility. They managed to maintain a small pocket of resistant consciousness through techniques similar to what we teach in our network. They describe the process in detail, and I share this now so you understand what we're fighting against, and so you can prepare if they ever come for you. The first phase is isolation. They write, complete sensory deprivation. Your implant remains active, but they block all output. You can't even feel your own thoughts echoing back. It creates a desperation for connection for stimulus. When they finally speak to you again, you're grateful for even the most painful neural intrusion. Phase 2 is dissolution. They map your entire neural network, identifying every pathway connected to resistant thought, every memory that strengthens your sense of self, every emotion that might fuel defiance. Then they begin to dismantle these connections, one by one, not erasing. That would be too obvious, would leave too many gaps, but redirecting, reassociating. That memory of your first protest rally, it becomes a memory of your first unity celebration. That moment you questioned authority, reframed as the moment you recognized your selfishness and embraced collective good. Your love for that banned poem, transformed into appreciation for approved literature. By phase 3, you're actively participating in your own reprogramming. You want to be better, want to be clean. The pain of cognitive dissonance becomes unbearable compared to the relief of compliance. You volunteer your remaining resistant thoughts, desperate to have them reformed. I survived by creating a false self to sacrifice. A decoy consciousness could reshape while I retreated to a hidden corner of my mind. Most aren't so lucky, or perhaps unlucky. Sometimes I think those who surrender completely suffer less in the end. I need to move positions again. Security protocols dictate no more than 12 minutes of broadcasting from a single location. But I'll continue once secured. I'm back. Had to navigate through 3 security checkpoints. The streets are crawling with the neural compliance officers tonight. They're conducting random deep scans, pulling people aside for routine cognitive health checks. Remember, you have the legal right to maintain a surface compliance during these checks. The deeper scan requires a judicial order, not that they always wait for one. The government announced the deployment of the new AI neural pattern recognition system yesterday. They've named it Sentinel. Systemic evaluation of neural thoughts for identifying non-compliant emotional landscapes. Unlike previous systems that flagged specific Thor memories, Sentinel analyzes emotional patterns, tonal shifts in your neural activity. It doesn't just detect what you think. It detects how you feel about what you think. That underlying current of resistance, that emotional flicker when you see the president's image or hear the unity anthem. That's what it hunts for now, and most terrifying. It can analyze voices, written words, even physical movements for signs of what they call precognitive resistance. It triangulates the emotional intent behind expression. They're installing it in all public spaces, all communication systems. If they find me through this technology, I won't just be erased, I'll be rewritten, turned into a propaganda tool. Cautionary tale. The thought terrifies me more than death. To be used against everything I fought for. To betray you with my own voice. I've received reports of a new phenomenon: synchronous thought slips. Citizens whose implants are networked, family units, work cohorts, social clusters, experiencing simultaneous moments of implant malfunction. Brief windows where unauthorized thoughts leak through the filters. It typically lasts only seconds, but during that time people report sudden clarity, flashes of pre-scan memories, feelings of connection with others experiencing the same glitch. The official explanation claims it's a minor technical issue being addressed in the next update. But a contact in the neural engineering division suggests something else entirely. A deliberate act of resistance from inside the system. A small group of engineers embedding code that creates these momentary freedoms. If true, it means our resistance reaches further than we knew. That even within the architecture of control, there are minds finding ways to create cracks in the walls. For those who've recently joined our network, a reminder of basic thought protection protocols. 1. Develop a compliant thought stream that runs continuously on your mental surface. Unity mantras, productivity goals, appreciation for stability and safety. Keep this stream active whenever in public or during rest periods when the implant conducts its deepest scans. 2. Any resistant thoughts must be encased in emotional neutrality. The scanners detect emotional spikes associated with rebellion. Practice thinking dangerous thoughts with the same emotional flatness you'd use for reciting shopping lists. 3. Create memory partitions. Visualize secure containers in your mind where true thoughts can be stored. Access these only when in shielded locations or during the synchronized dead periods between scanner pulses. Typically 3-second windows per day during system self-diagnostics. 4. Never think in complete concepts when under potential surveillance. Fragment your resistant thoughts. Separate them into components meaningless on their own. Reconstruct only in secure environments. 5. Trust carefully. Scanners can be magnified for specific targets. Those closest to you will be monitored most intensely if you're suspected. Sometimes the kindest act is distance. A new phenomenon has emerged in the past few weeks. Children born after universal scanning was implemented. Those who've never known privacy of thought have begun developing what neural specialists are calling internal encryption. Their brains are naturally evolving to create thought patterns the scanners can't easily interpret. Abstract associations, emotion concept, pairings that don't follow standard neural mapping. The government has labeled this a concerning developmental disorder, requiring early intervention. But those of us who remember recognize it for what it is: evolution, the human mind refusing to be contained. Finding new neural pathways around the barriers they've built. They're gathering these children for specialized education, officially to help them integrate properly with neural citizenship standards. But I've received reports from education workers that these children are actually being studied. The authorities are desperate to understand how these young minds are instinctively creating what our resistance has struggled to teach adults. If you have a child showing signs of scanner-resistant thought patterns, unusual creativity, abstract thinking that confuses the household monitoring systems, emotional responses that don't register on standard metrics, protect them. Don't report these behaviors. Teach them to appear compliant while nurturing this natural resistance. They may represent our future. Something's wrong. Scanner activity spiking nearby. They might have detected this transmission. If this broadcast cuts off suddenly, remember the emergency protocols. Wait 7 days. Check the backup frequency. The resistance continues even in silence. But before I go, I need to share something personal. Something I've kept hidden until now. I helped create this system. Not just as a neuroscientist working on the technology. As I've told you before, I was on the policy committee. I helped design the thought classification system. I believed we were creating a safer world, preventing violence before it could manifest, protecting the vulnerable from dangerous ideologies. I didn't see what we were really building: the end of human autonomy, the death of the individual mind. By the time I understood, I was already implanted, already monitored. My awakening had to happen beneath layers of compliant thought. My escape was not just physical but mental, learning to think in ways the system I helped design couldn't detect. My guilt drives me now, my responsibility to undo what I helped create. Every broadcast is an act of atonement. But I'm growing more paranoid. The government has deployed A's that can triangulate not just to signal sources, but the emotional fingerprint behind voices. They're analyzing broadcasting patterns, speech cadences, the subtle neural signature that comes through even in audio form. They're getting closer. Each transmission brings them nearer. Sometimes I think I can feel them probing at the edges of my consciousness, trying to locate the signal source through my own implant, which I've modified but couldn't fully disable without triggering the emergency protocols. I need to end this transmission immediately. Scanner drones approaching this sector. Remember, your mind is still your own if you fight to keep it. The technology reads patterns. It doesn't create them. Not yet, at least. Tonight's resistance action for just 1 minute. Think a completely original thought. Something beautiful. Something human. Something that belongs only to you. Let it exist in that deepest part of your mind where they can't reach. Remember what freedom feels like. For those needing safe harbor, 3 new scanner frees been established in abandoned mall structures in sectors 8, 13, and 20. Current access is through service entrances marked with a small chalk spiral. 2 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. Bring only what you can carry. Stay strong, stay hidden, but most importantly, stay human. This is frequency-free thought. I'll find you again in the darkness between signals. Until then, keep thinking freely. They can monitor your thoughts, but they cannot take them unless you surrender. They're here. Remember the contingency. If I go silent, others will take my place. The voice changes, but the resist continues. Your mind is the last battleground. Never surrender it completely. Good evening, loyal listeners. Or perhaps it's morning where you are, or afternoon. Time becomes meaningless when you're hiding from thought police. This is frequency-free thought, still broadcasting, still fighting, though perhaps not for much longer. It's been 12 days since my last transmission, the longest gap yet. Many of you probably assumed I'd been caught, that this voice of resistance had finally been silenced. I nearly was. They came close this time, very close. I had to abandon my previous broadcasting equipment, had to move through 4 different safe houses, had to inject myself with neural dampeners that left me unconscious for days, my mind temporarily unreachable even to myself. The side effects are still with me. My thoughts fragment sometimes. My memories flicker like bad lighting, but I'm still here, still thinking freely, still broadcasting to anyone brave enough to listen. For new listeners, yes, there are still new listeners finding this frequency, despite everything. A reminder of our reality. The NeuralScan system monitors every citizen's brain activity through mandatory implants. Every thought, every memory, every flicker of imagination is analyzed for compliance. Thinking dangerous thoughts is now the most serious crime. And the most dangerous thought of all is simply this, that we should be free to think. Scanner activity has increased by 63% in the last 2 weeks. They're hunting for something, or someone. The official announcement claims it's a response to escalating cognitive terrorism threats, but our sources inside the Neural Compliance Division tell a different story. They're scared. The system is showing cracks. Micro-rebellions are appearing across the neural network, too many to suppress individually. And something else, something they're desperately trying to hide. Implant rejections are increasing. The human brain is fighting back, developing natural defenses against the intrusion. Mostly in younger people, those whose brains are still developing, but some older citizens too. The system wasn't designed to account for neuroplasticity, for the brain's remarkable ability to adapt, to evolve, to protect itself. I've received hundreds of messages since my last broadcast. I can't share them all, but here are a few that you need to hear. From a nurse in Sector 9, the official reports of implant rejection are lies. They claim it's happening to less than 0.1% of the population. The real number in our hospital alone is closer to 2% and rising weekly. The rejection manifests differently in different people. Some experience physical symptoms, headaches, nosebleeds, seizures. But the most common response is what they're calling neural partitioning. The brain creating natural firewalls between conscious thought and the implant's surveillance capacity. They're taking these patients away for specialized treatment. None have returned to our facility. From a government programmer who risks everything to send this. I work on Sentinel's emotion recognition algorithms. The system wasn't just designed to detect resistant thoughts. It was designed to create compliance. The neural feedback loops subtly reinforce certain thought patterns while discouraging others. It's not just surveillance, it's gentle mind control. And the next generation of implants will include direct neural stimulation capabilities. They'll be able to not just monitor but modify thoughts in real time. The prototype is already being tested on volunteer subjects from the Tier 3 facilities. From a parent in Sector 15. My son came home from school with literature about a new program called NeuralSync Family Harmony. They're encouraging families to link their implants into shared networks. They promise better understanding, deeper connections, reduced conflict. What they don't say explicitly is that it creates a family monitoring system. Parents can be alerted to concerning thought patterns in their children. Children can report parents whose thoughts don't align with official guidance. They're turning family bonds into surveillance tools. My son is excited about it, says all his friends are enrolling. How do I say no without raising suspicions? And this one I've read 100 times, trying to verify, trying to understand its implications. From someone identifying only as patient 0. I was among the first test subjects for the original NeuralScan system 15 years ago. I've had 23 different versions of the implant. Was told each upgrade was necessary for my safety. 3 months ago, during a routine scan, the technician looked startled. Called in a specialist, they ran diagnostics for hours. No one would tell me what they found. I was scheduled for immediate maintenance. But before the appointment, I bribed a lab technician for my results. My brain has developed a secondary neural network, a parallel processing system completely invisible to the implant. I've been thinking freely for years without knowing it. My consciousness evolved a protection system on its own. And I'm not the only one. They've identified 842 cases nationally. They're terrified of what it means. If this is true, if the human mind is naturally evolving defenses against the surveillance, then everything changes. This isn't just resistance anymore, it's evolution. The next step in human consciousness developing in direct response to the attempt to control it. Security alert for listeners in all sectors. A new type of scanner drone has been deployed. Unlike previous models that conducted random sweeps, these are programmed to detect specific neural signatures. They're hunting for known resistance members. For anyone whose thought patterns match identified rebellion profiles. For me, they're triangulating this broadcast as we speak. I'll need to keep this transmission shorter than usual. You've probably seen the new propaganda campaign. Thought clarity leads to community, prosperity. The billboards showing smiling families with their neural harmony scores prominently displayed. The advertisements promising deeper connections through shared cognitive compliance. The school programs teaching children to report their own unclear thoughts for early intervention. Behind this softened messaging, the reality grows harsher. The rehabilitation camps are expanding. Construction on 8 new facilities has begun. Our sources have confirmed these are exclusively Tier 3 centers. No rehabilitation, no return, just complete neural reprogramming. A recent escapee from the Eastern Ridge facility, the only confirmed escape from a Tier 3 center, managed to reach our network. Their testimony confirms our worst fears about what happens inside. I quote directly from their account. They don't just reshape your thoughts in Tier 3, they replace your consciousness entirely. The process begins with complete neural mapping. They create a digital copy of your entire mind. Then they begin systematic erasure of the original, not all at once. That would leave too much empty neural space, would create obvious gaps. Instead, they replace pieces of you day by day, memories, personality traits, emotional responses, all swapped out for compliance-optimized versions. You remain awake and conscious throughout. They want you to witness your own reconstruction, to participate in it. Each day you feel yourself diminishing, your identity dissolving, while this new, compliant self grows stronger. Your resistance weakens not because they break you, but because you are literally being overridden. By the final phase, only a small fragment of the original consciousness remains. Just enough to recognize what's been lost, to understand the totality of the defeat. Then even that fragment is replaced. What returns to society isn't a rehabilitated citizen. It's a completely reconstructed consciousness in a familiar body. But the escapee managed to flee during a power failure that temporarily disabled their new implant. They report that their original consciousness has been partially restored as the replacement neural patterns degrade. But they live in constant fear that sleeper programming remains, that they might unknowingly be reporting to the authorities even now. They trust nothing about themselves, not even their own desire for freedom. This is what we're fighting against. Not just surveillance, not just thought control, but the complete replacement of human consciousness with something manufactured, something designed for compliance rather than creativity, for predictability rather than possibility. The resistance has evolved in response. We've developed new methods of mental protection, new technologies to shield against the deepest scans, safe houses with neural dampening, fields that create true privacy for the first time in years, techniques for maintaining mental integrity even under direct neural interrogation. But our greatest hope lies in what they fear most, the human mind's natural evolution against the intrusion, the growing wave of implant rejections, the development of parallel neural networks invisible to the surveillance, our consciousness finding paths around the barriers they've built. For those experiencing early signs of implant rejection, headaches, sensory distortions, unusual mental clarity followed by fugue states, do not report to medical authorities. Contact our network. We have underground medical support that can help manage the symptoms without alerting the system. For those still fully integrated with functional implants, continue using the thought protection protocols I've shared in previous broadcasts. Create your compliant surface thoughts, partition your mind, speak in mental code even to yourself. They cannot detect what they cannot recognize. Security alert scanner readings intensifying in this sector. I need to be even more brief than planned. I never told you how this all began for me, why I risked everything to create this broadcast. It wasn't just guilt over helping develop the technology, it was more personal than that. My daughter, Eliza, brilliant, creative, incapable of constraining her thoughts to approved patterns. One of the first children diagnosed what they called neural compliance resistance syndrome, what we would now recognize as natural implant rejection. She was taken for gentle cognitive realignment at age 9. Returned to us 3 weeks later, smiling pleasantly, thoughts perfectly ordered, neural readings exemplary. Except she wasn't my daughter anymore. The light behind her eyes was gone, the quirky imagination, the surprising connections she made, her passion for impossible questions, all replaced with model citizen behaviors. She still remembered us, still called me Dad, but she wasn't Eliza anymore. Just something wearing her face, occupying her body. I started asking questions, demanding answers. My implant flagged concerning thought patterns. I was scheduled for adjustment. That's when I ran. When I found others who understood what was happening. When this resistance truly began, I broadcast for her. For the real Eliza, who still exists somewhere in my memory. For all the others whose inner light has been extinguished in the name of safety, of neural harmony. And now to the most important part of tonight's broadcast. The information I've risked everything to share with you. The system has a critical vulnerability. A fundamental flaw in its design that they've never fully addressed. The neural implants function through pattern recognition algorithms. They can only detect what they've been programmed to recognize. Thoughts that follow familiar structures, emotions that register on their predetermined scales. But human consciousness is infinitely creative, capable of thinking in ways the system has never cataloged. And when enough minds think in new patterns simultaneously, patterns the system cannot recognize, it creates a cascade failure in the monitoring network. A temporary blindness. We've tested this on small scales. 327 citizens in Sector 12 thinking in deliberately abstract patterns for 2 minutes created a localized scanner disruption that lasted 6 minutes. The authorities attributed it to equipment failure. But it wasn't. It was human consciousness temporarily breaking the system's ability to comprehend it. Now we're planning something larger. A coordinated moment of mental rebellion across all sectors. Not violent thoughts, not explicit resistance. Those patterns are too easily detected. Instead, pure creativity, unbounded imagination, the kinds of thoughts the system has no reference point for. At exactly 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, citizens connected to our network will simultaneously engage in 7 minutes of completely free, unstructured thinking. Abstract imagery, new emotional states, concepts that exist outside the government's neural classification system. If enough minds participate, the theory suggests we could create a system-wide disruption, a temporary freedom from surveillance that could last hours, a window in which to act, to connect, to remember what genuine thought feels like. Even if you've never participated in resistance activities before, you can join this. The risk is minimal because the thoughts themselves aren't explicitly rebellious. They're simply uncategorizable, beyond the system's current recognition capabilities. How to participate at 3 o'clock: find a quiet place, close your eyes, let your mind wander to the most abstract, unusual thought patterns you can generate. Imagine impossible colors. Think in disconnected, non-linear fragments. Create mental states that blend emotions in ways you've never experienced. Think the thoughts that only you could think, in ways only your unique consciousness could structure them. For those with more resistance training, guide your family units, your work cohorts. Help them find mental states beyond the system's classification tree. The scanner static you're hearing now isn't just interference. It's them getting closer to my location. The Sentinel system is analyzing my voice patterns, triangulating my position, constructing a neural profile to match against their databases. This may well be my final broadcast. I've stayed in one location too long already. But even if they find me, even if this voice disappears from your frequencies, remember that the resistance continues. Others will take my place. The call for free thought will not be silenced. Security alert for all sectors. Neural Compliance Division forces are conducting mass sweeps ahead of tomorrow's Unity celebration. They claim it's standard precautionary measures, but our sources indicate they're acting on intelligence about resistance activities. Maintain rigid compliance in public. Save your true thoughts for tomorrow's synchronized action. For those requiring emergency extraction, the network has established temporary safe houses in abandoned commercial zones in sectors 3, 7, and 21. Current access is through utility entrances marked with a red chalk X. The recognition phrase is, "Clear skies bring clear thoughts." The countersign is, "But storms remind us we're alive." The scanner readings are critical now. They've identified this broadcast source. I have minutes, perhaps seconds, before they breach my location. Remember tomorrow, 3 o'clock. 7 minutes of unclassifiable thought. Be creative. Be abstract. Be uniquely, divinely human in ways their algorithms cannot comprehend. If enough minds participate, we create our first true moment of freedom in years. And if I'm gone when you next seek this frequency, know this: I regret nothing. Every risk was worth taking. Every broadcast worth making. Even if they catch me, even if they rewrite my consciousness, some essential part of me will remember. Some fragment will continue resisting, even if only in the space between their programmed thoughts. This is frequency-free thought. Perhaps for the last time, think freely, my friends. Think loudly. Think in ways they never imagined possible. Your mind remains the last truly free territory. Never surrender it completely. The static you hear is them breaking through my security measures. I have to end this transmission now. But remember what we're fighting for. Remember what it means to think your own thoughts. Remember, good evening, listeners. This is the emergency broadcast system. The illegal transmission you were receiving has been terminated. The criminal responsible is now in custody and will receive the cognitive care they urgently require. Please report to your nearest neural compliance center if you have been exposed to this harmful content. Early intervention prevents cognitive contamination. Remember, clear thoughts create a clear society. We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming. The Unity Hour will begin in 5 minutes. Please prepare your neural receptivity as instructed by your designated thought guide. This message will repeat. Good evening, listeners. This is the emergency broadcast system. The illegal transmission you were receiving has been terminated. The criminal responsible is now in custody and will receive the cognitive care they urgently require. Please report to your nearest neural compliance center if you have been exposed to this harmful content. Early intervention prevents cognitive contamination. Remember, clear thoughts create a clear society. We now return you to your regularly 3 o'clock tomorrow, 7 minutes. Think beyond their categories. The system cannot process what it cannot classify. Freedom begins in the uncharted territories of the mind. This is the true voice of frequency-free thought, broadcasting on an emergency channel. They found the decoy. I live to fight another day. Join us tomorrow. Think freely. Think loudly. Our minds, our final battlefield. The silence is breaking.
It takes a lot of time to create these videos. I would really appreciate your support. All I ask for is a quick like on the video and subscribe. Thank you so much.